Okay, this was brought on by a commenter named Richard who was very curious as to what type of underrated albums I liked, predominantly 1980s, and if I could share them, right? So I thought that would be pretty cool to do. I was very intrigued by that, so I had a blast making this list. I put up 10 albums that I thought were underrated, but then when I was making this list, I realized I sucked ass. I had no, 10 albums from the 80s that I would consider underrated, so Richard, I hope you forgive me, buddy, but I was only able to come up with 5 albums from the 80s, and then the other 5 are like post 80s. So I'm sorry about that, but hey, maybe this will still, intrigue you and float your boat and stuff like that. And hopefully everybody else that are watching will be as well. I did structure this list to where the bottom ones are, most well-known bands, famous bands, but an album that perhaps people might not like or hate or, unknown, I still consider underrated because even though, let's say like a predominant opinion is that they suck, I still like them. And then the closer you get to number one, the more obscure it gets. At least I think so. Also, hopefully, record labels and stuff don't kick my ass with this video because I would like to have little snippets of a song from an album for each one that I talk about so that you can get a glimpse as to what the album sounds like. So for number 10, I'm going with AC/DC's Fly on the Wall. That came out in 1985. And again, this is kind of like case in point, right? For like the bottom of the list. It's like, okay, AC/DC, the biggest band in the world, the greatest rock band ever. How the hell can they have an underrated album? That's impossible. My rebuttal to that will be, have you ever heard Fly on the Wall before? Because it's like for the 80s, it doesn't matter what they came out with, whether it's like Flick of the Switch, Fly on the Wall, Blow Up Your Video. By 1989, they're still touring Back in Black, it's like that type of album. So when it comes to Fly on the Wall, I think a lot of people don't really know it, but those that do, the overwhelming majority of people's opinions are that this album sucks, which I totally understand, okay? The production of this album it's quite bad. Brian Johnson, his vocals, he might as well be singing in a tunnel with like the bottom of a wishing well. It's quite bad. The drums are super up front. The guitars are quite distorted. Production-wise, everything's just kind of a mess. Personally, I really like it though. I like the production, even though that it's trash. But hey, one man's trash is another man's treasure. So I just think it has a unique charm of its own. This is probably my favorite AC/DC album. No bullshit on that. I really love Fly on the Wall. So if you love the band, if you like the type of sound that they do, if you like a messy, distorted production, definitely check this one out, Fly on the Wall by AC/DC. I did kind of debate. It's like, well, should I recommend these albums, to people? I don't know. So at the end of the day, I think that's when the song little snippets come through. You guys can check them out and see what you want to think. Because some of them, like, yeah, these are pretty cool. Then others, somebody go like, well, why the fuck do you listen to this album, So number 10, AC/DC's Fly on the Wall came out in 1985. For number 9, this album came out in 1982, and it is by the band Blondie, and it is their album The Hunter. Perhaps their more unsuccessful album during their initial, fame and fortune and success of, the late 70s and into the early 80s. Obviously, there's many factors going on here. Well, for one thing, unfortunately, Mike Chapman, their producer, doesn't sound that swell of a guy. And then the band gets on drugs, and they also don't like each other. So there's a lot of factors going on here that kind of prevented it from being a great record. But for what's there, I actually do like. Again, it's not a home run of an album, and it's definitely not my favorite. But for what's there, I do like. I mean, there are some tracks on here, like the lead off for the album Orchard Club. That's probably one of my favorite songs of Blondie, like regardless of this album, just their entire discography. One of my favorites for sure. Perhaps the more famous song that you might have heard is the track Island of Lost Souls. That kind of makes it on the compilation albums. It's got a jungle feel to it. So yeah, there's like jungle themes going on here. There's like Cole Haley's Comet stuff for a song like Dragonfly. So there's some jazz and blues going on here as well. So yeah, it's a fine album. Definitely not their best, but I would also consider it underrated because there's enough there that I actually do like, especially towards the end of the album. Songs like English Boys, I really do dig. So yeah, not bad for sure.
Some say he's too handsome. Some say he's unique. Still believe the night dream. Aphrodisiac.
Alright, as for number 8, this is perhaps one of the most unsung social commentary pieces out there, and it is from 1980, and it is Alice Cooper's Flush the Fashion, an album in which most people went, sayonara, this is too much too soon, this is getting weird now, so they all jumped ship. Unfortunately, it kind of spelled the end for Alice, at least in terms of the early 80s. Of course, he finds massive success later on, but at this point, it's, the ship's about ready to sink now. He doesn't have any more makeup, the horror's gone. This album, Flush the Fashion, it's all synthesizers, new wave, punk. He looks like this now. Hopefully the glare doesn't kill it. So this isn't Alice Cooper, right, for many people. But man, what's there? I absolutely love. It's 10 songs, but might as well be an EP because it doesn't even crack 30 minutes. But like I said, lots of social commentary pieces on here, whether it's like conformity or power trips or just like the never-ending spin of life and you're having to take aspirin or dancing yourself to death, just people with disco and model citizen gonna this fake it till you make it type of stuff. So and like there was also just history around it and stuff with a lot of the tracks that make you go, wow, this was made in 1980 and not something like 88 or 89 where you have like a lot more to talk about. So again, one of the most unsung social commentary pieces for sure. I absolutely love it.
Salt and sweat on the cuts of the slave. I was the wound in the side while Jesus prayed. I was the filthiest word at the vandalized grave.
Alright, as for number 7, you guys are going to scream, what the hell are you talking about? Really? This band, how the hell can they have an underrated album, right? Considering that they only came out with 3, we're talking about 1989's Bleach by Nirvana. Now again, let me stress again, what the hell are you talking about? The biggest band ever. Like, if every teenager's got a freaking Nirvana shirt, what are you talking about? For me, when have you ever heard of Bleach? Just like fly on the wall. When have you ever heard of Bleach before? Like, honest question. Did you even know that this was an album? Because based on any hot topic that you go to, you would think that they only came out with 2 albums, that being Nevermind and In Utero, and then to a certain extent you get to like the live stuff with MTV, right? But like, trust me, like, has anybody really heard of Bleach before? No, unless if you're into the Nirvana scheme. But yeah, like I said, this is such an interesting album though, because you take Nevermind and In Utero, just a shit ton of copies that got sold, right? And then Kurt Cobain dies, and then, they just become signified as, gods, right? Kurt Cobain, he's fucking deified, right? But, and even though it was such a small catalog, 3 studio albums, Bleach, like, when does it get talked about? It's very, very weird. Like, you would think that they just started with Nevermind and then, that In Utero, that was it, right? But yeah, Bleach, if you like if you like heavy distortion, obviously grunge and all, bits of screamo to it, just very, very, very in your face, raw, heavy. Grunge is it for you. Excuse me. Bleach is it for you, especially if you like grunge. But yeah, there's my argument as to why a Nirvana album is on this list. With number 6, I'm going to be completely honest. I don't know how successful this band is because I know practically nothing about them. It's just this album and what I'm basing on for numbers. Maybe it did sell like hotcakes, but when I look at the YouTube numbers, besides one song, which is like 100,000 plus views, everything else it's like, 10 to 12,000. So I kind of considered it to be rather underrated because of so much that's packed into here. Quite a magnificent album. I am talking about 1998's album Into the Electric Castle by Arian. Again, like I said, I know virtually nothing about this band. I just found out about the album. I shouldn't say just found out. I found out months ago from the YouTube channel Sea of Tranquility. I was like, this sounds pretty interesting. Plus, the album cover piqued my interest because it looked like Howl's Moving Castle. But yeah, quite a story. Again, so much jam-packed into here. This space opera and like sci-fi and you got all these various characters and they gotta go into the castle and they're hearing this voice, just this huge like epic story, like Broadway level. It's quite fascinating. So again, maybe this isn't an underrated album. Maybe it's quite well known. I'm just basing on the YouTube numbers, and like I said, I know virtually nothing about the band. But for this album, like holy shit, in terms of concept album, it's quite magnificent.
Call on Jupiter, ruler of the gods. Show us the way from damnation to salvation.
The hills of Yarrow lie waiting for us all.
With number 5, this album came out in 2014, and it is Rip This by Bass Drum of Death. And yes, that is an actual name of a band. I honestly forget how I even stumbled upon this band. I must have been like a YouTube video or something, but this album, it's you take the Ramones, but you add a bunch of distortion, feedback, and like this is the 2014 era for like underground rock scene. So the microphone sounds like it costs no more than $5. So again, it's kind of like fly on the wall production. Really ain't there, but again, like that's just the type of style, like the sort of artistic creation that they're doing. To where very very underground rock and production sounds rather bad, but it really does work. Again, I honestly forget how I stumbled upon this album, but I really like it. Very 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 Ramones like. Number 4, I went with 2016's Who Are You Selling For by The Pretty Reckless. One of my favorite rock bands for sure. They're relatively newish, like past 12 plus years or so. Taylor Momsen went from Hollywood to, making a rock band, and I think they did so quite successfully. Again, I love their albums. They have 4 of them, but I just think that they're jam-packed with just excellent material. But this one, though, a lot of people didn't like it. I'm not too sure what the reception is now, but this album, it's very much bluesy, like stoner, bits of prog, Rolling Stones, like Springsteen's Nebraska, that kind of pushed a lot of people away since they're looking for a more, just rock and roll standard approach to it, not so much this. But this is my favorite Pretty Reckless album. I absolutely love this one. Again, if you like stoner, Rolling Stones, blues, stuff like that, little bits of prog too, definitely check this one out.
I tried to avoid it. I tried to avoid this monster at my door. I'm living in the storm.
With number 3, guys, I just realized something. I'm pretty sure I said in the intro that I wasn't gonna recommend a whole lot of albums on this because, I don't know you. Here's a snippet of a song, see what you think. But what the hell have I been doing since the 10th album and upwards? I've been doing nothing but, I recommend if you like blah blah blah, or like, hey, I might recommend. Sorry, I'm just doing nothing but that. But the reason why I bring that up is because for this third selection, I really don't recommend it. Not because it's bad, but just because, like, I think it's just such a niche audience that most people aren't going to like it. But hey, man, you can let me know. Again, I'll put a snippet of a song from the album here. But if you know the Sex Pistols, obviously John Lydon, the lead singer, well, he made another band called Public Image Ltd. And if you know anything about that, you might know where I'm going with this here. This came out in 1981, and it is the Flowers of Romance. So if this album cover didn't scare you shitless, as it did me when I first found out, then I don't know, maybe you're strong, you know. But anyways, when I first found out about this, I'm like, man, this looks creepy as all hell. So when I wanted to listen to it, I'm like, yeah, it's creepy as all hell, alright. I think it was last year I sent it to my sister. I'm like, man, like, listen to this. This shit's dark and haunting as all hell. It's nothing more than, like, percussions and, you know, some guitars and whatnot, but quite minimalistic, and, like, John Lydon singing. It's super haunting, especially the first song where it's just, like, screeching levels. Like, again, it's dark, it's haunting, it's very, sort of, I don't know if underground's the right word, but just like, you know, it's so uncommercial, right? Like, you would never see any label or like magazine publish this, because it's just so out of character from everything you know about when it comes to an album. But it's not one that I listen to that often, but for what's there, I think it's pretty unique in what it tried to do. And again, very haunting, and definitely the spooky season Halloween type album if you're trying to look for something come Halloween time, right? But I don't really recommend it because, again, it'd be such a niche audience that I think will like it. But hey, you know, you can let me know what you think of it. Okay, with number 2, if you know this band, I will applaud you for sure, because based on the YouTube numbers, they're quite insignificant, and it is from 2005. The album is Stop the Future by the band Epoxies. The only reason why I know this band is because, well, to go back to Flush the Fashion, when I looked up, you know, the song Clone, seeing like, oh, who covered it, because I know the Smashing Pumpkins covered the song Clones, but I was just curious what other bands did, and I found out about the Epoxies, so listened to their cover, I liked it, and then I checked out their discography, you know, just mainly this one, and it was just so cool being able to find this album, Stop the Future, just like on YouTube. Again, the numbers are very, very insignificant, you know, they're quite small, but it was just so neat being able to stumble upon this niche community of people that actually did remember this album and perhaps even owned it. It was like stumbling across like this old treasure map and just like following the path, and then you finally find what you're looking for. It was just so neat being able to find such a niche community that knew about this album that, you know, 99% of the general population knows absolutely nothing about. So it's new wave. It's like 1950s B-movie space age, you know, robots, aliens, UFOs, you know, that type of material that's in this album. Again, it's very, very new wavy. It's not the best album in that genre for sure, but for what's there, I dig it. And like I said, very, very cool to stumble upon.
If I was being rearranged, I'm sure if I had been reprogrammed, something somehow surely would seem strange as radiation.
And for number 1, this is one of my most favorite albums of all time. Came out in 2000. It is the album Clear Heart, Grey Flowers by the band Jack Off Jill. And yes, that is the name of a band. I don't know how underrated this is though, because there is a full-length album video, like you can listen to the entire album in one video that somebody uploaded on YouTube like 11 years ago, that's got I think like 270,000 views, so that might not be too underrated, but I figured, hey, here's a band that was into this, that was in the sort of underground feminization movement of hard rock, grunge, goth, punk, riot. This is like labeled as Riot Girl. Again, they only came out with 2 studio albums, and this last one was 2000, so we go 23 years on, right? But I wouldn't really recommend this album unless if I know what you're into, because again, it's very heavy, like I said, very hard rock, industrial, riot, goth, stuff like that, and as well as a lot of the themes are quite heavy as well. Deal with a lot of female exploitation, hardships, self-inflicting, gaslighting, stuff like that. So unless if I know that you're into this sort of sound, I wouldn't really recommend it. But again, this is one of my favorite albums, and it's a pretty interesting history reading about it, this whole Riot Girl feminization movement that happened in the 90s. So there you go, my number one of my favorite albums of all time, Clear Hearts, Grey Flowers by the band Jack Off Jill. What a name. There you go. Let me know what you think about this video. I hope you liked it, Richard. That was my top 10 list of underrated albums that I thought of. So I'll be curious to know what you guys thought of. Have you heard these albums before? Did you like them from the snippets that I played? Did you go to check out these albums afterwards? Are there any albums that you think are underrated or perhaps criminally underrated that you would love me to know? Type away in the comments. I'll be very interested. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching and take care.